Welcome to the At the Coalface Podcast with your host, Jason Greenwood. This podcast is all about what it's really like in the trenches of digital and e-commerce.
Welcome to the untold world of digital commerce, Unbxd fireside chat series. And I hope you and your families are doing safe and healthy. This is already 2021, and digital commerce was never been so important ever before. And just to bring the highlights, we have with us Jason Greenwood, one of the digital experts who has been mentoring, guiding e-commerce stores across ANZ and other parts of the world as well. Just to quickly summarize, in this fireside chat, we are going to talk about three key things. One, on your digital commerce journey, where do you begin? Where the digital transformation actually starts for you as an online retail store. In terms of tech capabilities and functionalities, where do you choose your battles and where you win? And lastly, how do you justify the entire time, money, and effort which goes into implementing this to get your digital commerce act right? What's the North metric which you should be looking at to justify the ROI of this? But let's begin. Hey, Jason, happy to have you here with us.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here, and I really look forward to speaking with you today.
Absolutely. Pleasure is all ours. Jason, so hi, everyone. Now we start with the entire fireside chat. Before we jump into this, we are going to do a very quick rapid fire just to warm Jason up so that he can answer our questions to the T of it. So, Jason, I think let's do this. Are you up for it? I will pick a word. You just have to tell me what comes to your mind when we say that word. Are we good?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. So, Jason, here I go. Auckland.
Beautiful, very expensive housing prices, and lots of traffic.
You have so much to say about Auckland. Okay, weather.
That's my rapid fire response about Auckland that leaps to mind.
Awesome. Okay, my second one would be weather.
Weather.
Yeah.
Unpredictable. That's because I'm thinking weather in New Zealand, so it can be very unpredictable, but lots of rain and therefore lots of green for the most part.
For now, I can see the sun shining on you. So yeah,
unpredictable.
Unpredictable.
Yeah, it's almost 4 p.m. Well, it's just after 4 p.m. here. So yeah, the sun is streaming in and it's just on the way going down now.
Awesome. Okay, my third one would be digital commerce.
A given.
Okay. That was
absolutely a no-brainer.
Brilliant. Jason.
Oh, Jason.
Yeah.
Passionate, intense, kind, and grateful.
Okay, looks like you know yourself quite well.
Yeah, I've been living with myself for a long time now.
I know. Okay, and there goes my last one. Future.
Exciting, bold, very different to what the past has been, and accelerating. The future is accelerating towards us.
Well, that was my rapid fire with you. Thank you so much for your responses. Bang on. Now that you mentioned the word accelerating, I think I just do not deny that fact. Overall, in terms of how businesses have shown up relentlessly in the past 1 year, how they have gone to pivot their business strategies, and I think how they have picked up the new strategic initiatives overall across the globe. I've been talking to people across US, EU, ANZ. I think everybody has been on their toes to bring up new things to accelerate the entire new mode of engaging with the end consumer. So there's no denying the fact that there has been acceleration in the entire ecosystem. So here I begin. Jason, it's going to be like, I would be asking you a few questions. We would love you to answer that for our audience, because they are here to know that how can they accelerate their digital commerce journey and in the right direction. So starting with it, Jason, I have this question with you. I think e-commerce businesses overall in the last pandemic period, during the pandemic and now post-pandemic, I think there has been a major paradigm shift which has been happening, primarily in terms of how shoppers are behaving, how they're engaging, how the entire digital interactions have been happening with the retailers, online retailers, and the entire omnichannel retail. What, according to you, are the top 3 top 3 trends that have come up during the last, shown up very, glazingly bright in the last 1.5 years. Top 3 trends which you have observed.
3 trends.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, e-commerce is a trend that was further entrenched, just simply because with lockdowns, the entire market was shut, and so during that time, the only way that people could trade, the only way people could buy, the only way people could shop was online. So that trend, I think, was already becoming a trend. Over the last 5 to 10 years, e-commerce was becoming a trend, but it was definitely entrenched as a trend during the pandemic, and I think that we're going to unwind a little bit of that demand as rolling lockdowns come to an end globally, and as people start shopping in stores again. I think a little bit of that demand will subside a little bit. I don't think it'll all stick, but a significant portion of it will stick, and I think the data is showing that we've accelerated e-commerce adoption, depending on where in the world of data you're looking at, around 10 years. So that's significant. Down in ANZ, that means about 1% a year we were accelerating as a percentage of total retail. And so that means that, about 10% additional penetration of e-commerce into retail. The second trend that I'm seeing is the rapid growth of marketplaces as primary go-to-market digital channels, happening everywhere in the world, but nowhere is it happening faster than in the ANZ region. It feels like there's a new marketplace launched almost every single day down in ANZ, particularly in Australia. And it's not just, pure play marketplaces that are being launched. It is retailers themselves launching their own marketplaces to expand their offering without having to actually hold stock. And that is a massive, massive trend. And we're also seeing the emergence of different formats of marketplace. We're looking at high end, we're looking at, if you look at Farfetch and you look at some of the premium, very high end marketplaces that are selling premium luxury goods, all the way down to secondhand items being sold through auction website marketplaces and everything in between, all the way to the Amazons and the eBays of the world. So we're seeing marketplaces become an absolute fixture in the digital channel mix that most brands have to consider. At some point or another, they're going to have to consider a marketplace play, particularly as Google Shopping is now free, and Google Shopping, which most people don't understand, is actually also a marketplace, and Google's pushing that really hard. So that's another big trend.
Yeah.
The final big trend that I think is becoming a massive and very rapidly growing trend is contextual commerce. And so, I put all of social commerce fits underneath contextual commerce, but basically commerce everywhere, all the time, across every channel and across every device. That is becoming an absolute norm. And as a result of that, the transaction is now actually executing contextually where the customer is. And that's emerging through things like in-app purchasing, for example, through social media, where instead, historically you've been redirected to an e-commerce website to complete the transaction. There's bigger and bigger demand now by the consumer to never, ever leave the experience that they're in the middle of. They don't want to leave that experience to execute the transaction. So those are the 3 really, really significant meta trends I think that we're seeing is the radical and increase in pace of adoption of e-commerce, the radical proliferation of marketplaces, and the importance in the digital mix that is, combined with contextual commerce. And I'll give you a freebie. There's a 4th trend that is is emerging and is being forced by Google, and that is because of the death of third-party cookies. The leveraging or the importance of retention-based marketing. So using existing first and zero-party customer data and remarketing to your existing customer database in new ways to increase customer lifetime value.
Absolutely.
As opposed to this
very valid point.
Laser focus on acquisition. Instead of focusing on acquisition, refocusing a business's marketing efforts, or at least rebalancing heavily towards retention and CLV based marketing.
True. Okay, awesome. So I would like to sum that up for everybody. Number 1 is the stickiness of the online purchasing trends, with some part being drifting away once the pandemic is absolutely completely over. Second would be the marketplaces, the advent of marketplaces and expansion of it. And third would be the contextual commerce. And the freebie, which Jason gave us, is the retention on the existing customer base and increasing the CLV using them rather than refocusing on the new acquisitions. I think that was amazing. That's absolutely true. A lot of it we have been hearing out from our customers and our prospect clients as well. Jason, that brings me to the second important point. When you talk about contextual commerce, you talk about people sticking to the online buying trends. Now, digital commerce, I think, becomes inevitably a part of that entire journey, right? But for online retailers, what is that tipping point? If they are in that already in the process of growing, they're already in the process of transformation. What is that point where they actually realize that they should be looking at digital commerce strategically and not as a one-off thing in the checklist? What is that tipping point? You will call that out. What should be that, hey, shout out, and this is where the point is where we should be looking at digital commerce?
Well, if the pandemic hasn't created that tipping point for businesses that were on the fence, then nothing will. That's the reality. The pandemic has brought it into relief that digital commerce is no longer a nice to have for any business. In my opinion, it is a must-have channel for all businesses. And the businesses that don't implement some form of digital commerce, very effective, at least basic digital commerce functionality, if they don't do that, then they're going to increasingly find themselves irrelevant in the space. And it doesn't just mean B2C retail. We're talking B2C retail, B2B retail, and D2C retail. It doesn't matter what form of retailer you are. The reality is, if you are not bringing a strong digital commerce play to the table, you're increasingly simply going to be irrelevant to where your consumers are wanting to shop. And that is going to accelerate over time. And so therefore, and the competition is only going to increase every single vertical.
The gap is going to get widened if somebody does not pay attention at this point in time. So you're saying if somebody has not realized that tipping point is now, then probably they are not going to realize it even later, and then they're going to lose on the revenue overall over a period of time.
They're probably going to be out of business in 5 years.
Yeah,
is the reality.
But that would be an alarming stage to be in, because that means now is the time when they actually should be looking at it very differently and start working towards it. So I think, guys, you hear it out from Jason that if you are not looking at digital commerce right now as a strategic initiative, then probably 5 years is the most you could survive with it or without it. And you would probably run the risk of running out of business. Well, that happens to be an alarming stage for each one of us. Jason, so when you talk about digital commerce and you talk about it so passionately, which you are, so how would online businesses they process this entire digital transformation journey? Like, is it like maybe I'm reiterating and I'm asking you to reinforce, but is it like good to have? Is it a must have, or is it a compulsive solution? And how important do you think is to build a robust digital ecosystem? And I like to club this with my another question here. When you're talking about building a robust digital commerce journey, what would you think would be the important components of this?
Well, I always, when I'm advising businesses on digital commerce and establishing their channel strategy, their omni-channel strategy, establishing their go-to-market proposition, and establishing their, all of their requirements around digital commerce, the place that I always have to start is meeting them where they are. So some brands, are very advanced and they're way down the track, and they're looking at ways in which they can efficiently and effectively scale what they already do from an e-commerce perspective and then take it to the next level. Because a lot of businesses during the pandemic that already had a strong e-commerce offering, they realized that they were not ready for an overnight shift for 100% of their revenues to come via e-commerce. So let's say really strong brands might have, an omni-channel brand, they may have been doing pre-pandemic, they may have been doing up to 30% of their overall revenue via e-commerce. And then literally overnight, they went to 100% of their revenue being via e-commerce if their store estate was closed, or even if they were a pure play, the demand for e-commerce functionality in terms of the sales demand went through the roof. And so even businesses that had a pretty good e-commerce play to begin with, their supply chain was put under the spotlight, their digital operations, their warehouse operations, their pick, pack, dispatch capability, both inbound logistics and outbound logistics was put to the test. Their ability to scale all of their operational functions that support the e-commerce operation, even down to the point of being able to hold enough stock in their warehouse to support 100% of revenue coming through e-commerce operations. It really taught businesses a very important lesson, which is you never know what the next disruption is that's going to come to the market, and you never know when you're going to be reliant on digital channels almost overnight for 100% of your revenue. So I think the brands that aren't doing e-commerce at all, it's a wake-up call for them to add digital channels to their channel mix. I think it's really important. And obviously the omni-channel, particularly if they have a store estate, then bringing a truly omni-channel experience to the table becomes really important, whether that be click and collect, whether that be omni-channel reverse logistics, buy online, return in store, buy in store, return online, creating a self-service digital capability in store for customers to self-serve in as many ways as they want to self-serve, and then obviously having a really, really strong pure e-commerce play. I think if you don't have that, then it's time to really start giving that some serious thought, attention, and an allocation of budget. But if you already do have that, then you've already seen most likely what it's like to have to scale up almost overnight your e-commerce operations to take on much more of a percentage of your total revenue. So I think every brand, regardless of where they're starting from, they've got to really, really look at their digital capability, both people, process, technology. You have to look at all of those, and brand. You've got to look at all of those equally when you're revisiting kind of your overall digital commerce capability.
Awesome. I think I would like to call that out when you say digital capabilities across people, process, technology, and across the channels. So as an ecosystem, they need to build the digital capability to have a fine balance that they are equally equipped on all the sides to cater to the end consumer needs, right? If I have to put that in short. So
I think it's not just that. I think partnership is key, right? So when you think about the fact that, for example, all but the very, very largest global companies will be working with partners for some elements or many elements of their digital capability. So, for example, 95% percentage of businesses out there will not have an in-house e-commerce development team, for example. They will not necessarily have all of their digital marketing in-house. They might do some of it. They might do, for example, they might do PPC in-house, but then they're gonna outsource some other forms of demand gen, and they're gonna outsource, I don't know, if they do programmatic, they might outsource some of that. If they're going to do, there's many different, both marketing as well as transactional channels. And very rarely can a merchant take on all of that ownership in-house. So, and especially from a tech perspective, sure, Amazon provides an on-demand AI service that you can integrate into your technology stack, but 99% of people are never going to do that. They're going to consume their AI tech via the partner technologies that they implement within their business. So, for example, like Unbxd, for a search and merch technology like Unbxd, like the technology you have, you guys will be leveraging machine learning and AI to drive your underlying technology. So the merchant doesn't have to understand AI. They don't need to understand machine learning. That's for you as the vendor to understand. And then by adopting you into the business as part of their technology stack, then they benefit from AI and machine learning by default as part of their overall commerce stack.
Yes, makes sense. Which actually brings me to the imminent next question, that when you talk about so much technology playing a role in this entire ambit of the scope of things, how do people go on? How do online retailers go on to evaluate, shortlist, and prioritize the key tech capabilities? Because we talk to so many B2B online retailers, B2C online retailers, and the number one challenge they have on their palette is there is so much to do, there is so much they can do, and then there are just so many tech capabilities they want to implement at once. They fall short of prioritization. They just do not know where to pick the battle from. They do not know which vendors I should be considering. I know there is, they have to go through the entire grind of it. But if you have to share that secret sauce with them, that how do they evaluate, shortlist, and prioritize? in terms of building and fixing these tech capabilities for their businesses, what would be your advice to them?
Sure. Before they even get to that place, oftentimes when I go in and they think, a merchant may think they're ready to go in terms of evaluating, say, a new e-commerce platform or a new CDP or a new POS or a new, PIM platform or whatever it might be. They're going to evaluate this new technology because they think it's the latest thing that they have to have in their business. But oftentimes when I get in there, the first thing when I get under the bonnet and I start looking at the quality of their data, whether that be customer data or product data, oftentimes that needs a whole lot of work first before. And so it's like homework, right? We need to understand what state is their data in today before we can look at picking a technology that can help them leverage all of that data in better, smarter, more informed ways that is going to bring ROI to the business. So usually when I get into a business, they might think, hey, I'm ready to engage with an e-commerce agency to rebuild my website, or I'm ready to engage with a new ERP vendor because I need to replatform my ERP. But again, we need to go back to where are you? Where do you want to get to? And how do we roadmap a really smart plan to get you from point A to point Z? And what does that look like over a period of time? And we need to look at data first. So we examine the data, we look at where they're starting from. Because at the end of the day, for example, with search and merch technology, you can have the smartest search and merch technology in the world, but if the base data that the technology has to work with is extremely limited or non-existent or poorly organized, then the technology itself will not perform at its best. So we need to look internal first. And every business starts from a different place. I mean, if a business has been transacting for 10 years in an e-commerce environment, then they know very, very well, usually, where their gaps are. They know what they want to improve. They know what areas are the big levers that they can pull, or at least it's easy for a consultant then to come in and look at their data, look at their analytics data, clickstream data, customer data, product data, and start to identify the gaps really, really quickly. Whereas if they don't have any e-commerce function at all, then obviously we're starting from a clean sheet of paper. And that's where a consultant like me, or there's other people like me in the market, it's not just me. There's people that can come in that have a framework and technologies that they've worked and implemented before that they know work well together to deliver a very holistic back office and front office digital experience. And that's where the benefit of someone with that level of experience that can hold your hand and guide you through that process and tell you the pros and cons of a few different platforms and help you, instead of just most digital agencies that are going to build you a website, typically they're going to come in and when they do their discovery, they're going to ask a whole lot of questions and they're really going to just document your requirements. They're not going to help you define or establish your requirements. And you need someone that has been there right from the start to hold your hand through that process so that we can define the requirements and so that you even know what those are.
Sure. Which brings me to a very important point. While you were speaking all of this, there are 2 points which you mentioned. The look at the data which you have, which means you really need to be looking inside before you start taking a step forward, right? Now the challenge is, I do not think in my personal experience that online retailers are moved by that incentive. Their motivation to implement a new digital commerce capability or a functionality is more driven by what their consumers complain about, what their partner ecosystem complains about, or sometimes also about what their competition is actually implementing at their end. So the motivations are not literally driven by looking inside, but by also driven by looking outside the ecosystem. And second point, where you mentioned that point A to point Z, I doubt if many organizations, many online retailers literally know what their point A and point Z is. Probably they know what the meta state is, where they want to be, but they really do not know what the final outcome of this entire activity has to be, which actually puts a lot more pressure because they do not have a definite concrete output in their mind. They still want to hop on the bus, not to miss that journey. And without knowing the destination, they are probably just left stranded. So when you were putting this, I was trying to wrap my head around these thoughts that we also talk to many people. And I think these challenges are some very pertinent challenges. How do you think this basic part can be fixed so that online retailers or the retail stores of the world can actually take a concrete and definite decision for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the job of people like myself and other, both the vendor as well as consultants. Tech vendors if they want to do themselves a really good favor, then I think they need to be honest. Instead of just trying to close the deal, they need to look at the customer's data or the merchant's data as well. So for example, if you're a search and merch technology platform, then obviously you've got to look at the existing product data, at least look at a subset or a sample of that data to make sure that no matter how sexy your platform is it going to be put into an environment where it can actually return an ROI. Really transparent and honest with the merchant. If they have some homework they need to do first before they sign on the dotted line, then I think being transparent about that is really important. And that's got to come from the vendors themselves around understanding what will allow their technology to perform at its absolute best for that merchant, so that 12 months when the contract ends, it doesn't get ripped out and thrown away. That's the first thing. Second of all, it's up for consultants such as myself to be brutally honest, right? Because the reality is, when we're brought in as an external consultant, we can be more honest and more brutally honest than someone inside the business, because inside the business, someone is looking at keeping their job. And so therefore, no one is prepared internally to tell them that their baby is ugly. Whereas I can come in as an external consultant, and I'm called in specifically to do that. I'm called in to tell them exactly where their baby is ugly and exactly what big levers they can pull to make big immediate changes in their business that will help them leapfrog their competition. So oftentimes they're more willing to open their kimono to me than they are to an internal team or an internal, stakeholder that is literally worried about, if they say, hey, our data's a mess and we're not ready to go forward until we fix this, they might lose their job if they're that bluntly honest internally. But the worst that I'm going to lose is a client, a consulting client, right? I'm not going to lose my job. So I think that it's incumbent upon vendors and consultants to be really transparent and really honest with merchants about their current state versus where they're telling you they want to get to, and helping them chart a path to get from A to Z.
Yeah, I would probably say you are just being too kind to the online retailers, because you're taking away all the worries away from them and putting them on the shoulders of the vendors and the consultants. But yeah, I totally get it. I think in the entire ecosystem of this exchange of dialogues, it's very important for somebody to be transparent to these online retailers and the businesses of the world, to tell them, hey, this is where you are, where your current state is, and this is where you are headed to. But in this entire journey, this is the area which you need to fix, or this is where the things need to get fixed. Which brings me to one important question. If I have to drill down this to the very tactical level, right? You've been talking about AI and ML technology, search and merchandising techniques. But if at all, for an online retailer, irrespective of the vertical, it can be a fashion and apparel, it can be a home decor, it can be a home furniture, warehouse, it can be it could be a mass merchant, a pharmaceutical. And I'm saying irrespective of the vertical which they belong to, if you have to list out, let's say 5 to 7, or let's say 5 to 10 top 10 tactical things, like tech capabilities which they need, robust their digital commerce journey, right? What would that be? I really want this to be very quick. Like, if what comes to top of your mind that these 10 things need to be fixed?
Yeah, they need to have a rock solid operational core first.
Okay.
So that means if they don't have an ERP and they're running their entire business out of spreadsheets, that's not going to work for them. That's not going to be scalable for them, right?
Yeah.
So you got to have a rock solid operational core.
Yeah.
You need to understand your customer through every single lens. And that means that, a CRM, a marketing automation platform is not going to be enough in that environment. You're also going to need a CDP if you want to do this properly. So you've got to know your customer, and you have to know them intimately, you have to know them deeply, and you have to know them on an almost one-to-one basis level of segmentation. If you can't do that, then you can't treat them uniquely. So therefore they won't feel special. So therefore it's going to be very difficult to retain them. And therefore you cannot differentiate the way that you communicate with them. You can't differentiate the way that you make offers to them. You can't differentiate the experience for them as they traverse your digital properties. You can't differentiate that if you don't know your customers and their data inside and out, right? Yeah. I think the next thing is to create an omni-channel both mindset and omni-channel ready tech stack right throughout the whole business. Because what's a hot digital channel today, it may not be a hot digital channel tomorrow, and there'll be something else that comes along. And if your business, if it is painful, expensive, and complex to take on middle channels, you're probably not going to take them on because it's just too hard. It's too difficult. It's too complex. It's too expensive, too time consuming. And therefore you'll say, I'll eventually get to that, which we see what happens in businesses. They never get to it, right? It's taken them forever just to get to an e-commerce website. So, when we start looking at the explosion of digital transactional and marketing channels, if you are not building your business through an omni-channel lens, right from the beginning of the architecture and the process and the people and everything you do, if you don't see your entire business through an omni-channel lens, you are going to be in a very, very challenging place as the sheer volume of channels overwhelms you over the next 5 to 10 years, right? That's another key part of it. The next thing is it's so difficult to even describe this in a way that'll probably make sense, but many businesses are resistant to change as opposed to, and they're trying to move from a place of resistance to change to accepting change. And I want to help businesses get to a place of accepting change to embracing change.
Yeah,
because
sure.
in change is massive opportunity if you see it through that lens. If you see it as a barrier, if you see it as hard, if you see it as difficult, if you see it as challenging, if that's the lens that you see opportunity through, then it's going to be very, very difficult to excite the internal team to embrace the level of change that is coming to the entire marketplace, both digital and physical. It's going to be very difficult to create a culture of embracing change if it doesn't start right at the top of the business. And oftentimes it's the CXO level of the business and the directorship level of the business that's actually resisting the change the most, because they want to stick to what made them great in the first place. But 99% of the time, the thing that got you from 0 to 1 is not going to be the thing that gets you from 1 to 2. And so truly embracing change and seeing it through the lens of opportunity is something that is so important in terms of mindset, because unless we can get them to that point, everything that you say is going to go in one ear and out the other, and it's going to be filtered through the lens of this is too hard, this is too expensive, this is not going to return value for our business. And that to me is probably the single biggest change, is a mental and mindset change and an emotional change for the business.
No, that's absolutely, I think that's perfectly fantastic. To all our audience, I think I would quickly sum this up for you, because if that's something which you really want to walk away today is, core operational core, CDP, omnichannel lens, looking at the entire organization from that omnichannel lens, the mindset and the tech stack, and the place of resistance, moving from the place of resistance of change to accepting change, and as Jason says, embracing change. I think these will be the key things which you need to be looking at if you are looking to fix digital commerce for your online retail business today. Jason, that was amazing. I think that was well put together. Now, if I have to ask you one question, which is very specific, on a scale of 1 to 10 in this entire capabilities which you defined, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important would you rate search and merchandising, or probably the product discovery as a whole for online retailers today? And why do you think so?
Out of 10?
Yeah.
I would put that right up there. I would put that probably in the neighborhood of 7 to an 8. It is absolutely critical. Product discovery is really, if a customer can't find what they want or what they need, or be inspired to want something through the search and merch process, if they can't do that, then they'll leave, because they'll find someone else that does provide that experience for them. So, there are some customers that come to a website and they know exactly, what they want, but they really just need to find it and locate it and add it to their basket and check out. Other customers, they need some guidance, they need some rails to send them down, they need some inspiration, and they need some support, and they need to be given confidence that you not only are going to provide the product that they want, but you're going to provide the experience that they're actually looking for to back that up, and also fitting within the budget expectations that they have for whatever it is that they're shopping for. So search and merch is mission critical, but it's even more mission critical for brands with large catalogs. I mean, obviously, if you only sell 20 products, then search and merch is probably not high on your priority list. And, just through good categorization and good product filters, that's probably enough. But if you have, 1,000 plus products in your catalog, or 500 plus products in your catalog, search and merch starts to become truly mission critical in terms of customers having a really experiential, enjoyable, fun shopping journey before they get to the buying journey, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's how the entire shopping world works as well. It's more an emotional driven decision. And if at all you are faltering at that emotional aspect of the shopping journey, you might as well end up losing the customer, not for once, but forever. So, okay, I think I take your answer, the rate of 7 to 8, mission critical with high SKU count. So online retailers, if you're listening to us today, if your SKU count is high, if shopping journey, something which you really want to impress your shopper with, then search and merchandising or probably product discovery as a suit would be important for you to fix for your shoppers. Jason, that brings me to almost we're moving towards the closing of this session, and I would like to enlighten our audience with how do you stitch this entire piece together. You talked about what challenges are there, you talked about what capabilities need to be put up, and I think you did actually answer this question partially when you said people need to move from place of resistance to acceptance of change. But I think that, having said that, there still needs to be something which will help to stitch the entire piece together.
Yeah, look, I think you just have to start, right? Like with anything in life, whether it be going to the gym, you can read about going to the gym, you can read about hobbies, sports, interests. You can learn everything there is to know about it. You can take an online course about it. You can sign up to a master class. You can do all these things. But really, the thing that merchants have to do is to actually start. And once you start, then you may not know everything going in, but you're going to learn pretty quick. You're going to learn by doing. You're going to learn by having to bring in maybe an external consultant or an agency to help with the specific areas that you see that you're weak in as a business, because rarely our business is weak everywhere. They usually have their own internal strengths, and then they have to supplement those internal strengths with external strengths to plug the gaps where they're weak. So trying to understand and be really brutally honest with themselves. Where are we strong? Where are we weak? Bringing in some external resources, whether that be hiring those resources as permanent employees, like bringing in an e-commerce manager that has a lot of e-commerce experience to level up their internal capabilities. Maybe that's the case, particularly for a B2B business that maybe has never done e-commerce before. Maybe where they start is by hiring an e-commerce manager to help them guide them down that path. If they're a long-term e-commerce merchant and they have lots of capability in-house, then maybe what they really need is just a really high-level technical agency that can implement all the brilliant ideas that they have and provide a little bit of guidance, technical guidance around what that might look like, and the timelines and managing the technical deployments and the version control and all that stuff. Maybe they only need help there because they've got all the great ideas. They know what they want to implement. They just can't do it themselves because they don't have developers. So it really does depend on a business being honest with themselves. Where are our strengths? Where are our weaknesses? Try to plug the gaps with some external resources as fast as we can, learn as fast as we can, and start taking some action and help, look to external parties to help you chart a path to taking those baby steps, which turn into big steps, which turn into a project, which turn into long-term success.
Awesome. I think well said. All the fruit results, or all the fruit relies in doing the things right. So you need to start doing today in case you want to stitch all the pieces together. I think I come to my last but one question, which is when they do all of this, I think nobody does this without any expectation in return, right? So what business impact should these online retailers be looking at when they are building this entire digital commerce journey, right?
Yeah, well, look, I think more than ever, whereas maybe pre-pandemic businesses were saying, hey, if we do a e-commerce replatform project, we want to see a 1% increase in conversion rate, or we want to see, because of the replatform and its ability to have a better technical SEO of the website, we're going to see an uplift in traffic of 5%, or they're going to look at various different metrics that they're looking to improve through any given project that they maybe aren't happy with, or they're looking to reduce churn, for example, with through a project, customer churn, and they're looking to retain at a higher rate. So if they've got a churn rate of 5% today, they're looking to bring that down to 2%, or if they're at 50% today, they're looking to bring that down to 40%. So typically very specific metrics that businesses are looking to improve. But really what I am also trying to get businesses to understand better now is the opportunity cost. What is the opportunity cost if you don't do this? What is the opportunity cost if you don't implement a strong e-commerce operation and a strong e-commerce offering? Because if you don't do it, your competitors either already are doing it or they're going to be doing it, and they're going to be doing it most likely better than you because they're going to get the jump, they're going to get the head start on you, and you're going to be playing catch up. So really, for businesses that are already transacting and trading, they're pretty clear oftentimes on what they need to achieve to move the levers in the business to get them to that next level, whether it be of revenue, whether it be, whatever it might be, right? Their customer lifetime value or their average order value or whatever the metrics are that they're really focused on at that given point in time. They know what they want to achieve, and then it's up to them and their partners to chart a pathway to achieving those and setting some real clear KPIs and goals of getting there. But I think for businesses that don't do e-commerce at all or haven't, looked at their e-commerce offering in a decade, the opportunity cost is the thing that makes the difference. It is the market is moving that direction. In the UK, there's over 30% now penetration of e-commerce as a total percentage of retail. They're saying that by 2025 in the UK, that might be 50%. McKinsey is saying. Now that is an insane number. If we look out only 4 years, for 50% of all retail to be done via e-commerce, that is an insane number, right? So what is the opportunity cost if you don't do it? Well, I guess 50% of your revenue, if you don't want 50% of your revenue to come from e-commerce and you're going to be relying on whatever other channels other than e-commerce for 50%, the remaining 50% of your revenue, then by all means keep going the way you're going. But if you want to participate in this e-commerce growth story, then you got to be in the game to have a chance of winning.
Absolutely. I think that's perfect. By the way, we already have some questions coming in on that point, but we'll be looking at that in just a few minutes from now, which brings me to the last question, Jason. I think it's been amazing insight of you telling people that, hey, this is, I think one key thing which I have learned from talking to you is changing of the mindset and start doing today. You really need to look at things from how things are going to shape up, and they've already shaped up drastically in the last 1.5 years. They've moved from one sphere to another sphere altogether. How things are going to shape up in the next 5 years of time, if we do not start changing things today, probably we'll run the risk of running out of the business. So it's been an amazing conversation. But tell me one thing: digital commerce. When we call digital commerce as one thing, right? Is it just a step towards being future proof or future ready, or does it has to be an inherent part of the entire strategy which an online retailers or the ecosystem is thriving upon? What's your take on that? And with that, we would close the entire conversation with Jason Greenwood today, and we would jump to the questions.
Well, I think if you're only looking at e-commerce as a tactical short-term play, then you're only going to treat it as a tactical short-term play, and it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you're purely trying to game the system and maybe use it as an acquisition channel and then push them all to your physical stores or whatever the case may be, then I think you're going to lose in the long term. So unless you have the mindset in the business, this is a strategic long-term business play for us, and therefore we have to resource it just as heavily and just as I guess with as much thoroughness as we would any other channel. If it's the physical channel, we put a whole lot of attention and weight on the physical channel, but we need to put at least as much attention, weight, and investment in the digital channels as we do in our physical channels. I think then that also becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you look at the businesses that are generating their own demand, right, for their digital channels, and it's new demand. So they have an established level of demand, say, for example, for their physical stores, but then when they establish a really sexy and really high quality digital experience, then not only do they see a little bit of cannibalization of maybe some of their physical customers that defect to the digital channels, which is good because it means they're not losing those customers to a competitor, but they're also attracting a completely new audience, and they're actually growing the bottom line because there is a certain demographic of customer and a growing demographic of customer that will never shop physically with them, that would only shop through digital channels with them, and will only shop through their digital channels if it's seamless, if it's easy, if it's got all of the expectations met through that digital buying journey, they simply will not shop with you if you do not have a strong digital offering. I'm one of those types of customers. I do probably 90+% of my shopping online. And so therefore, if a business doesn't offer a digital channel, they'll just never have the chance to get my business. Yeah. So I think that's the lens that businesses, it's all a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If you have a shitty digital experience, and through the pandemic, you had customers going to your e-commerce website for the first time because that's the only way they could shop, but they had a terrible experience and they go, I'm never going to shop on that website again because it was so crap, then you may have lost that customer from, it's going to be a lot harder to get, even if you fix your digital experience, it's going to be hard to get them to go back and try it again than if the first time and every time thereafter they have a great experience, then you probably want a customer for life. And I think that's something that businesses really need to think about.
Oh, absolutely. I think that brings me to point out that you have two kind of shoppers today available with you. One is Jason, who shops 90% plus items online. And one is me, who actually hates shopping online. But in the last 1.5 years, I have moved considerably towards shopping stuff online and on across all the needs, whatever you need. And I think for the coming few years of my life, I think probably I'm going to stick to that behavior. And I'm sure there are many more people like Jason and me who are either a hardcore online shopper or probably are just transitioning into becoming an online shopper. So in any which ways, the online shopping behavior is going to stick, and digital commerce journey, to fix digital commerce journey would remain your number one priority for all online retailers. And Jason, it was amazing talking to you today. Thanks for wonderful conversation. I'm sure online retailers today would take a piece of advice with them, and they would have some key points to walk away with. Now, very quickly jumping to the questions. We had a question, does that include click and collect, to a point which was talked about in, are we basically, how do we?
I think that was probably in relation to the UK data that I was referring to. I think that's probably, so typically when we see this data coming out from the major research firms and also from some of the major shipping carriers internationally, they produce some very e-commerce data and statistics. Same with the banks and same with credit card companies. This is where most of this e-commerce data comes from. And almost always, if you dig into the data and the projections, it includes all forms of digital commerce, of which click and collect is considered that, because the transaction is actually executed in the e-commerce channel, and then the fulfillment is managed via a click and collect process that leverages a store estate or click and collect lockers or something like that. So yes, that it typically includes click and collect, and it includes all other forms of kind of hybrid omni-channel commerce as well. If the transaction is executed through an e-commerce website or through a mobile app or through a contextual commerce site or through a marketplace channel, regardless of what digital channel that is where the transaction actually takes place, that is almost always taken into account in those projections of percentages of penetration of digital into total retail spend.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. I do not think we have any other questions for now. But if at all you have questions, you can always drop in a mail at marketing@unboxd.com, and we would try our best to get Jason or me to be replying to that questions, and we would love to do that. If at all you are already an online store who is looking to fix any of these tech capabilities in digital commerce journey, we would be happy to talk to you in person. You can always drop a mail with a request at the same email ID, which is marketing@unboxd.com, and we would be happy to help you and guide you through. Jason, I cannot be more thankful to you for taking time out today and sharing these beautiful, wonderful insights with our audience. Thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed the experience as well.
Absolutely. No, thank you very much. And again, just in terms of where people can find me, I'm most active from a social perspective on LinkedIn. So connect with me on LinkedIn. Love to have a chat with you. Love to help people out. I put out content literally every single day on LinkedIn. Try not to ever miss a day. So connect with me there, and I'm sure they can connect with you there as well, because that's how we connected. And I really look forward to catching up with people online. I love being part of the e-commerce community. It's my passion. I've been doing it for over 20 years, and love to catch up with people online. Thanks for listening to the At the Coalface podcast. If you want more At the Coalface, you can subscribe to our premium e-commerce and digital newsletter, At the Coalface Digest.